The Play Action podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Play Action podcast. I'm Katherine Fitzgerald, joined today by Ryan O'Halloran at Bill's training camp. He's in here for Mark Gahn. We're 10 practices into camp. Ryan, let's get right into it. What have you seen out of this offense so far?
It feels like 100 practices, not 10. But I'll digress on that since we're here. It's pouring outside, at least where I am in Rochester. But Josh Allen at this stage of his career, and I've seen other veteran quarterbacks, they're not going through the motions, but you could tell they're like, okay, I have to get my work in. I have to stay out of harm's way. And I have to be efficient and not turn it over to get to the next day, which gets me to the next week, which gets me closer to the Jet game. So I think that's where Josh is at his stage of the career. What I like about how they run practice here with the Bills is Josh Allen gets a ton of reps, and which leads me to believe he's not going to play a lot in the preseason games. But this was Monday's practice, and he had a 2-minute drill at the end. They put very little time on the clock, maybe 45 seconds. Pass here, pass there, and then he threw downfield for a touchdown that Trent Sherfield made a great catch on. We'll get to Trent a little bit later. So, so I think Josh is getting his work in, and for him, it's just, hey, what can I fine tune? What can I process to be ready for that Jet defense, which gave him a lot of problems last year? Flipping to the other side of the offense with the receivers and the tight ends. One thing fans realize, every receiver pretty much gets work with Josh Allen because they rotate him in and out. Outside of Stephon Diggs and maybe Gabe Davis, Katherine, who are some of the skill position guys that have really emerged so far?
Yeah, to your point, Diggs and Davis obviously are looking strong in training camp already, but I've been really impressed with Trent Sherfield. You mentioned that touchdown that we saw in practice number 10. His rapport with Josh Allen, I think they've built that chemistry so quickly. He's had a few plays throughout camp that have really struck me. So I think when you look at the receivers, there's still, I think, a lot of interest in kind of after Diggs and Davis, who else? How about you, Ryan? Who's standing out to you?
Well, and I'll pick it up on Sherfield real quick. And I've had quarterbacks tell me before about new receivers, why the connection so early? And they'll say, dude knows how to get open. And it means he knows how to read coverages. He's seen a lot of things. He's not going to, blow you away with his speed or his route running. He's just cagey. I'll go to Deontay Hardy. He was working a lot in the slot position. I would say if they had to roll the ball out today, he'd be their starting slot receiver. And I'd say Sherfield would probably be the number 3 outside ahead of Shakira. But Deontay Hardy had to play Monday in practice. He was working with Kyle Allen. He ran a route over the middle, and he hit the brakes like a snap of the finger. Saran Neal went right by him, and so for a first down gain for that second team offense. So, it's, let's say they keep 6. So Diggs, Davis, Sherfield, Hardy, Shakira, that leaves a bunch of guys. Maybe Andy Isabella. Maybe if he's the kick returner, that could earn him a roster spot. You wrote about him in Monday's paper. So once you get past the first 2, we sort of know who's going to make the team, but there's still a lot of good competition going on.
Yeah, I think with Andy Isabella especially, he wants to get back into that return game there. He didn't get quite as much time doing it recently, but he thinks that'll be a big part of his game. And then, as always, checking in on the tight ends, I think as we continue to see how this offense could evolve, I think there's still some interest there just in what Allen is doing to build that rapport with Dalton Kincaid, on top of obviously already having Dawson Knox as a really trusted weapon in this offense.
I get the feeling Sean McDermott would rather be asked about what happened with Leslie Frazier than he would be about how excited he is for Dalton Kincaid. I mean, he is like totally pulling out a fire extinguisher whenever he's brought up. Well, he's a first-round pick, so he's going to be a topic of conversation. But here's the bigger point. Nobody can cover him right now. First play of that 2-minute drill with Josh today, he was wide open right over the middle for 15, 20 yards to start that drive. So I'm interested to see, how much they play Kincaid in the preseason. I think they must, just to get his bearings a little bit, and then how little they play him. Let's flip it over to the defense. And really, there's not a lot of starting competition battles at any point on this football team. But on defense, middle linebacker, Terrell Bernard, Tyrell Dodson are both getting the first team reps. You talked to Terrell after practice on Monday. what's sort of his confidence level that he can win this job, and what do you make of what Bobby Babich is saying about the competition?
I think it's an interesting competition for sure. Terrell Bernard was saying how, camp is a challenge of this is his second year in the system. Coaches have been impressed with everything he's done to learn it, but he is still getting to know more of it. Last year, he got some reps both at Mike and at Will, particularly in practice splitting time. So now just kind of concentrating for that middle linebacker competition. I thought it was interesting on Monday to watch, when he was not on the field, he'd be on the sideline right by Sean McDermott the whole time, asking him questions, getting kind of like soaking in, what is he calling? Why is he calling it? Now I can apply this to myself when I'm on the field. So, he was saying he's learned a lot just from that, of taking that extra step between his actual reps on the field to keep learning more and more. It is still an open competition. Bobby Babich, the other day was saying how they're still looking at all these guys. They have not officially ruled out Balin Spector, but from what we're seeing, it seems narrowed to the other two guys a little bit. But still just giving them each reps to get the defense comfortable with them. And, while they want to decide sooner rather than later, I don't know that it's going to be too soon, just based off how much they're trying to kind of analyze who will be best there.
Yeah, and you hit a good point of that, is the communication part, because not only are one of these guys potentially going to be a starter, is they got to have enough confidence in this defense to tell Micah Hyde, a Jordan Poyer, a Tre'Davious White, and Ed Oliver, move, go over there. That's not the call. That takes some moxie and some confidence in your knowledge of the defense. And I was really wrong. I thought A.J. Klein would be part of this mix, because I thought Sean McDermott would lean toward the only player on this roster who has started games for a McDermott called defense from their days in Carolina. I thought maybe Klein would start the season before giving way to Bernard, just get him more seasoning with the defense, with the position. But right now it seems to be a two-man race. And I guess what the Bills have to decide is it important to name a starter before the first team's final preseason action, which would probably be the Pittsburgh game. If it's not, then they can carry it all the way through to week 1 if they want to. So, I think the first time would be who starts on Saturday against Indianapolis. Then does that mean the other guy starts against Pittsburgh a week later? So I think Babich sounded cautiously optimistic that they're headed in the right direction, as opposed to they got to go find somebody to play the spot. So I think that's probably the number one subplot for me left amongst the top 22.
And I think, to your point, that communication is such a big aspect of it too, where the guy has to make plays, he has to know the defense, but he also has to have that part of it down as well. I was talking to Terrell today a little bit about, what you do to inflect your voice the right way, what you do just to do all those small things to get the defense on the same page, where there's so much more to it than just, I know what I'm doing for myself and I'm making these plays versus, having that command of other people as well, which I think is a fun challenge to these guys too. Terrell Bernard mentioned that, how having that sense of control, there's excitement there, but still a little ways off from knowing who will get that starting nod. The other battle we're still watching on defense is at cornerback 2. What do you make of that so far?
It's CB2.
Yes. My mistake.
Well, cornerback 2. To me, it just appears that it's going to be headed sort of the same thing as last year. It's, hey, Kaiir Elam had a good week in practice. Okay, he's going to start. Oh, Dane Jackson made some good plays in the reserve role. Okay, he's going to get to start. That's not ideal. First of all, Kaiir Elam's a first-round pick, and he should be starting by now. There should be no doubt. And that's not an insult on Dane Jackson, who's had a good career so far. But if Dane starts in week 1, the Bills got to think, okay, what exactly do they have or not have in Kaiir Elam? So, when you watch the 11-on-11 work, Dane just jumps out more. He's around the football a little bit. He's making receivers make contested catches. And I think Christian Benford has flashed more than Kaiir Elam. Christian has 3 interceptions in the last 2 days, albeit against backup quarterbacks. But I'm really interested to see if Benford can challenge for that second second cornerback spot and maybe get some time that way. But I think if they had to play a game this week, a real game, I think Dane Jackson would be their guy.
Yeah, it does sound sometimes they always harp on Dane's experience. I think this is the decision that'll linger a little bit longer. Last year, it was kind of all the way up until week 1. But I think especially when you want that middle linebacker set just for getting those extra reps communication wise, whereas this one, they've been so comfortable rotating. I don't think there's the same urgency with the decision.
Yeah, because as we hit about the middle linebacker, I mean, that is your quarterback on defense. A rotation there doesn't work because it's a different voice, that kind of thing. If I was the Bills in the preseason, I would tell Trey White, you're on ice until week 1. They need to get real looks at Jackson and Elam. Start them to get Benford in there and just see who emerges. And because you sort of know if Tre'Davious White gets his work in practice, that's pretty much all he needs.
Yeah, the only other major note I would say on defense from the last couple of days at least, Jordan Phillips is now activated off PUP, but he is still ramping up slowly. So not fully involved yet, but I think that's, nice that he's starting to head in that direction.
Yeah, and I thought before practice on Monday, Sean McDermott made a good point because it's an accurate point, is when you're on PUP, you cannot even participate in walkthroughs. You cannot be on the field whatsoever. So I think that was the motive behind activating Jordan Phillips is, get him on the field in the afternoon when they're walking through, have him get those mental reps. And he did. He's done very little the first 2 days. He told me after practice on Sunday that they're looking at August 16th for a return to full teamwork. He says there's no doubt in his mind he'll be ready for week 1, but that leaves Von Miller and then Tyler Matakevich on PUP. So Von, they're going to ride that out until the final cut down. They may do that with Tyler as well.
The Buffalo Bills will take on the Indianapolis Colts this Saturday at Highmark Stadium for their first of 3 preseason games. Now, Bills players did get a bit of a taste of playing in Highmark last week at the return of the red and blue, but this now to face another team, Sean McDermott did say Monday how it's not really about the Colts. It's about still evaluating the Bills. So, Ryan, what are some things that you think people can watch for during this game?
There's not much. We're gonna come up with some stuff. One thing about that first preseason game is the depth chart revealed itself in 2 ways. Who's not playing, who is playing. And let's start with like the kickoff return and those top special team units. That's where you're going to see, guys who are starters on special teams, they have the inside track to make this team, because if a guy can play the core 4, he's going to be in good shape. So how many of these rookies, how many of the veteran players who are coming back from last year are on that first kickoff, first punt return, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'll add 2 more things about special teams. One, who's catching the football? Naheem Hines obviously is out for the season. Is it Deontay Hardy, Andy Isabella, Khalil Shakur? They've all taken reps with the jugs machine during training camp so far. And then finally on special teams is the new kickoff rule. I've talked to a couple of kickers throughout the league this week, and one, Brandon McManus in Jacksonville, says, hey, some teams may just do the touchback thing and save their strategy for the regular season. Tyler Bass said the Bills are going to be watching what other teams do. Are there a lot of squib kicks? Because right now you can call a fair catch inside the 25 and you get the ball at the 25. So those are just 3 things on special teams. Throw it to you. What will you be looking for?
Yeah, I think this is a little harder to watch for, but now that it is a sort of game, a preseason game with Sean McDermott taking on that double role of calling the defense while as a head coach, I think it'll just be interesting to see kind of what small tweaks there are, if any. It's so early, but also kind of just from a game day logistics standpoint. I think some of this we'll maybe find out afterwards of, what did you realize you had to tweak? What needs to be delegated to someone else? But I think evaluating kind of what is working for us as a coaching staff is as interesting to me as some of the player stuff when, to your point, there's only so much to watch for in this game, but I think it'll be a good test, particularly at home, of just, what's working, what isn't.
And that's a good point about McDermott. It would be one of the things to ask the linebackers after the game. Well, what was he like in your helmet? Was he chatty, or did he just give the play call in some other alert? So that is something to watch for, that, and which position coaches on defense are now moved up to the box to be his eyes in the sky. And, The last thing about McDermott, the one thing that really raises his temperature up is when they have 11 football players on the field at the same time. And so what is sort of the discipline like? Are they having to call timeout? Are they having procedure penalties? Those mental kind of errors that really drive coaches crazy. And then I'll add on offense is Latavius Murray is an interesting player to me at running back. If he plays a lot, are they trying to showcase him? If he plays very little, do they feel that he is going to be that third tailback that they're going to keep behind Damian Harris and James Cook? So, for the fans, stuff can be gleaned by who's not playing, and they're not a starter. Like a guy like Shane Ray, who in the practices that I've seen, he's really had a good camp. But do they think maybe they want to stash him on the practice squad as a depth guy? Well, then you probably don't want 100 snaps of tape on him because he may get claimed. So that's sort of the thing too about it's telling who's not going to play.
Yes, it is smoke and mirrors season coming up this Saturday. We'll have more for y'all after the game and throughout the preseason as well. So the Play Action podcast will be back next week. Make sure you subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts and keep checking back to listen.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's. We are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.